Good afternoon. Welcome to the inauguration of the third batch of the postgraduate program for experienced professionals, PGPEX. I begin by welcoming our chief guest for the event, Ms. Jyotika Patankar, our Director, Professor M. Chandrasekhar, all my faculty and staff colleagues, members of the project office team, the health center, our academic associates, all our current students, as well as the students of the incoming batch 2021-23. Welcome to the event. We will begin by we begin the inauguration with a welcome address and a presentation of the batch profile by Professor Milan Kumar, the admissions chair. Over to you, Professor Milan.
Thank you, Professor Vinay. Good evening and welcome to all. I welcome you all to the inauguration of third batch. I welcome our chief guest, Ms. Jyotika Patankar, Director, Professor Chandrasekhar, faculty colleagues, our students and staff members of IIM Visakhapatnam. At the outset, let me congratulate the new batch for joining the PGPEX program. I welcome Ms. Jyotika Patankar, who is currently Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship in the Government of India. She first joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1988 and was allotted to Uttar Pradesh cadre. She has served at different levels in various departments of Government of India and the State Government of Uttar Pradesh. I formally welcome Ms. Jyotika Patankar as the chief guest for today's function. So students for the PGPEX program were selected after 3 rounds of rigorous process. Let me give you a brief profile of the batch. So in our admission process, first we invite application. We notify and then we invite application for this particular program. And based on eligibility criteria, we shortlist all the candidates. After that, we allocate a personal interview score for each candidate, which is based on their past academic record, their work experience, and whatever qualifying test they may have chosen to apply for this program. The test includes CAT, GMAT, GRE, and IMV test. So based on all these parameters, we create a pre-PI score and then we call them for our interview process. In interview process, we keep 3 panel members, 1 external panel members and 2 of our internal faculty. And based on interview score and all the components that were mentioned earlier, we finally create a composite score based on which offer letters are rolled out. So this year, in continuation as this is the third batch, we started first batch with a strength of 21. Subsequently, in our second batch, we took 28 students. And this year, we have increased it to 31 students. This is how the profile in terms of their academic background looked like for batch 2022. This year, we see more or less similar profile where maximum number of candidates come from engineering background. Plus, we see increase in science. This year, we see slight increase in gender diversity with additional participant coming from female. There are more female candidates in this particular batch, and there is an increase of 5% in our batch in gender diversity for this batch. In terms of work experience, we see there is huge jump in the number of candidates who have joined us after a work experience of 3 to 6 years. And there is accordingly, proportionally, there is steep decline in terms of work ex between 7 to 10 years. In our earlier batch, we got maximum number of candidates from private sector, but this year we see there is participation from public sector as well. And Visakhapatnam is well endowed with many public sector companies, and we expect to increase participation from these candidates going forward. Thank you. This is the batch profile. Now, Professor Vinay, our PGPX chair, I entrust to you PGPX batch of 2021-23. Thank you, Professor. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Milan. I'll give a very brief overview of the program. Following the inauguration, we are going to have an orientation session wherein we will talk more in details about the program, and I'll also introduce our chief guest. This program is specifically designed for students who have a minimum work experience of 3 years. And the overarching goal of this program is to help the participants enhance their managerial competencies and leadership skills for professional growth and development, and through that advanced learning, contribute more effectively to their organizations. The program is spread across 6 terms over 2 years, and the total credit requirement is 75. I will take a few minutes to introduce our chief guest, Ms. Jyotika Patankar. Ms. Jyotika Patankar is currently Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship in the Government of India. She first joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1988 and was allotted to the Uttar Pradesh cadre. She has served at different levels in various departments of the Government of India and the State Government of Uttar Pradesh, including atomic energy, tribal affairs, culture, rural development, animal husbandry and health. During her government service, she acquired a diploma in public administration from the École Nationale d'Administration, Strasbourg, France. She was a policy fellow, Center for Science and Policy at Cambridge University. Prior to assuming the current charge, she was Director General, National Institute of Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development. Ms. Patankar is instrumental in formulating the schemes of district skill committees, state skill development missions, district skill development plans, and the Mahatma Gandhi National Fellow Program for capacity building of youth in public policy and skill development. She is a strong votary and is championing the cause of decentralization of skill development at the grassroots level. On behalf of the IIM Visakhapatnam family, I express my gratitude to her for accepting our invitation for being the chief guest in the inauguration program. I will now request our director, Professor M. Chandrasekhar, to address the gathering and share his views.
Thank you, Vinay, and thank you, Milan. I also express on behalf of the Institute my gratitude to the chief guest, Ms. Jyotika Patankar, for agreeing to our request to be part of this function. Let me begin by congratulating, as my colleague Milan said, the new batch who have come through a tough selection process, and hence this success must be a sweet one for them. I must also congratulate the graduating batch who on 24th of July, a few days from now, precisely a week from now, they would be receiving their degrees, and meritorious performers would also be receiving the medals. I should also take this opportunity to extend a special welcome to the family and friends of the students, both the current incoming batch and the graduating batch, who may have been participating in this event remotely. I would especially say this to the new batch, that you should rightly and rightfully be proud that you are now part of an IIM, that too a top performing one and a prestigious one. We notice that you come from many blue chip companies and also high pedigree organizations, and I'm sure the learning is going to be so much more impactful when you participate in the class share experiences, exchange constructive thoughts, and build a network amongst the colleagues that you may have in the class to enhance the learning process. When I speak about IIM Visakhapatnam, I cannot but highlight the strengths of this institution under what I generally call as 4 I's. I, alphabet I. The first I would like to highlight is about the intellectual resources. There can be no better example when I speak of intellectual resources than to speak shortly about in short about my 2 colleagues that I have here. One is Vinay, who just now spoke. Vinay is an engineering graduate from Jadavpur University, an MPhil holder from the Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, an MA and PhD from SUNY Buffalo, who taught at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and IIM Udaipur, and has joined this institute and teaches economics and social sciences. The other colleague that I have, the participants would have noticed it on the inaugural schedule sheet, is my colleague Saroj Pani, who would be taking charge as the program chair shortly. Saroj is a PhD from IIM Bangalore and comes with rich experience of having worked in IIM Indore, XLRI, IIM Nagpur, and now he is a part of our family. Between them, they bring many years of experience, and I'm sure the graduating batch would vouch when I say that these 2 colleagues are, when they teach with passion, and hence the rating they get, the student feedback that they get is among the highest in this institute. I'm just quoting these 2 gentlemen as an example, and I have many more colleagues participating remotely, in this function, and each one of them would also bring to the table an immense amalgam of their academic and research credentials as well as rich experience. And hence, I have absolutely no doubt at all that the incoming batch would stand to gain immensely from the knowledge, from the practice that my colleagues would be sharing as a part of their teaching and your learning journey over the next 2 years. We have a high faculty cohort strength of about 32, as I said, who are an ideal mix of academics, research, and experience, industry experience. They publish in very high impact factor journals. And as an institute, we also collaborate widely with fellow colleagues in other IIMs and other institutions, enhancing the knowledge, enhancing the research that we do as part of our activities. And we are also an institution with national character in the true sense of the term, because in our flagship PGP, which is the regular MBA program, the full-time MBA program that we run, which runs during the daytime, is we have students from 21 out of the 28 states of the country. And I'm equally proud to say that my faculty of 32 come from as many as 16 states of the country. So we are truly an institution which celebrates diversity, which celebrates shared values. As far as infrastructure is concerned, of course, this being the pandemic time, we are all operating remotely. But I do hope that sooner than later, we will have the opportunity of meeting all of you on campus here. And the graduating batch would tell you that the infrastructure we have is one of the best in the country. Even when the teaching is being done remotely, you would actually have of course, it's the synchronous kind of teaching learning that would happen. You would also experience a near classroom presence kind of a feeling. So, but as I said, we do expect that we would put behind the difficulties of this pandemic behind us very soon, and we will have a more actively engaged learning opportunity with the physical presence of the students in the classroom. The third I would say is the institutional processes which are pro-student oriented, and the faculty and staff here would go an extra mile in ensuring that the learning outcomes of the student cohort are the maximum, in providing opportunities to learn, in kind of sharing knowledge, hand-holding the student group, and building their capacities. They would walk the extra mile, and that is where the real value comes in. As far as the fourth I call is investment. Investment, both in terms of physical and figurative terms. Physical terms is, for example, the IT infrastructure we have created because of this pandemic. I just now said it's one of the best in the world. I have no doubt in saying that. And we have invested substantially in this infrastructure, close to a couple of crores of rupees in just about 10 days or so that we are actually upgrading ourselves to that level. And investment is also when our faculty cohort invests their time, energy, effort in building your careers, in building your careers for a better future, better growth. That's the kind of investment that I talk about, that they work with passion. This institute also has many unmatched strengths, and you would experience them when you come on board here. For example, we have a very vibrant women entrepreneurship development activity here. We have a technology incubation and development of entrepreneurship TIDE Center, funded by the Ministry of Electronics and IT. And we have a B.R. Ambedkar chair, which is instituted by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. In fact, we are the only IIM in the country to have this prestigious chair with us. And we are also a member. We subscribe to the ideals of what they call as Principles of Responsible Management Education, which is a UN initiative, UN Global Compact initiative. And there are only 2 IIMs in the country which are part of that, and apart from us. So we are the third IIM to sign up to those principles. Our job here, essentially, I would say, is to kind of borrow from what a renowned professor of organizational behavior at INSEAD, France said, Professor Jennifer Petriglieri. She said, the job of good business schools is to contribute to the professionalization of management for the good of the society. So it's just not kind of instilling professional skills in you, but also improving the individuals, the students, as socially responsible and society-oriented citizens. So that is the kind of holistic learning that this institute looks forward to imparting to all of you. British author John Elkington in the year 1994 spoke about the concept of triple P bottom line, triple bottom line, 3 Ps as he called it. One is people, planet, and profits. So while people, like for example, all of you who are domain specialists in your own organizations, who are very, very knowledgeable and evolved individuals, while people are important, and obviously it is the people who will kind of engender the profits when they work with productivity, with an aim of, with good performance, with the name of increasing the profits. But people at the core, profits are an output, but caring for the planet is actually an outcome, in the sense of the impact, the reduction of the carbon footprint or adoption of sustainable practices is something which, again, as I mentioned, the PRME, Principles of Responsible Management Education, focuses a lot on bringing sustainability issues into the discussion, into the classroom. And I'm sure my colleagues would do precisely that. I would also add that when you are part of the class here, you would learn something about strategy, something about systems, the structure, the systems, the organization as a whole, and the environment that operates around the organization, so that your contribution in the organization and outside the 4 walls of the organization becomes much more efficient and effective. As I said, our job here is to work on, you are already, as I mentioned earlier, you are already up there in terms of your knowledge, skills. Our job is to hone them, to polish them, So the focus would be on system skills, soft skills, and social skills. In fact, two professors of one of the top business schools in this country calls it a soul factor, an amalgam of system skills, soft skills, and societal skills. They call it as soul factor, and it's our job to enhance the soul factor in the individuals who become a part of our family. So this program, I would say, will help you to kind of sharpen your instincts and intuition. It will challenge you to be more creative. It will help you to be more imaginative in your thinking, your inquisitiveness to learn, the initiatives that you may take, the intellect that you may acquire, and also enhance your insights and kind of make you innovative in your thought processes. So it's not only the hard skills that this program would instill in you, but would also capacitate you on soft skills. When you operate in an organization, things like self-awareness, self-esteem, interpersonal dynamics, consensus building, conflict resolution, all these are important. Ethics, practicing ethics and values, these are all important. And these would be touched upon in the program. And true to the hallmark of an IIM, this program would indeed be contemporary in content and very current in context. It will broaden your worldview. It will broaden your horizon when you look at things, when you look at organizational challenges. And in a way, it kind of reflects how better, it will make you reflect how well or how in what kind of an improved manner you relate yourselves with your organizations to make them more vibrant and agile. So this, I would say that it's a very vibrant platform for all of you, as I said, to kind of, make best use of. And my colleagues would do, as I mentioned earlier, their very best to capacitate you. Your job, in addition to what I said, is to be alive to the fact that it's only in the dictionary that success comes before work, S comes before W. So it is important that hard work is vital for you to graduate with flying colors from this program. And I'm also kind of inclined to saying that, and I say this often, there is a book called Vikasa Mantras by Ramakrishna Mission, in which funnily they explain the concept of what kind of attributes an individual needs to have to be successful in the modern world. And they funnily put that if you give one letter to each alphabet, A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, etc., luck adds up to only 47, whereas attitude and discipline add to 100. So it's important that when you pursue this program of rigor, of which will make large demands on your time, it's important that all the individuals come with the right attitude and with the discipline to be part of this rigorous process for the next 2 years. Well, it's not that as if some of you may have had exposure to formal management education, but it is not expected because you have joined this program, and it is the job of me and our colleagues here to build, to bridge those gaps and build those additional skills in you. So, and don't be kind of, come with the inhibition that you may know something and you may not know something. That's fine. I mean, once you are on board, the institute, it's along with the faculty who teach you, the mentoring that goes with it, the hand-holding support that goes with it, maybe the tutorial classes that can be conducted for you will actually make you a well-rounded professional in this management domain. So as Will Rogers, one of the famous American actors, said, everyone is ignorant only in different subjects. So there is really nothing much to worry that you do not know a particular topic or theme. That's fine. But one thing that you should remain wedded to is what Vince Lombardi, an American football coach, said. He said, perfection is not attainable in this less than perfect world. But if you chase perfection, you can catch excellence, he said. So the focus should be to chase perfection so that we excel in whatever we are doing. So I would say that make best use of the resources and learning opportunities that this institute is going to provide. Do take active part in the events and activities outside the class as well. I would like this cohort, just as our flagship PGP student cohort is, to be very, very vibrant in participating in co and extracurricular activities. And all of you are working professionals. As I repeat, all of you come with huge amount of domain experience. But when you enter the class, it's always good to wear the learning cap, because as Dr. Radhakrishnan, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who was the second president of India and the first vice president of India, he said that when we think we know, we cease to learn. So it's important to come to the class with a learning cap. And as you grow in your organizations, I am also tempted to quote JFK, John F. Kennedy, when he said, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. So if we want to advance in our careers, want to become leaders in the true sense of the term, it's important that all of us remain, irrespective of what age we are at, in the learning process. Finally, I would say my piece of advice would be, do read a book. Do read a book of your choice. I'm not talking about really fiction. I'm talking about non-fiction. Whatever subject interests you, because reading a book always enhances, as I said, your horizon and your worldview. And the book I would recommend to you is written by a professor of Georgetown University called Calvin Newport, a book called Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. So, you have so much of digital gadgets, etc. around us, social media and other kind of quote unquote distractions around us. They could also be beneficial. I'm not denying that at all. But, it's also important to remain focused when we are pursuing a program of, an exacting program like an MBA program in an IIM. So it's important that, and my suggestion, I found this book very fascinating. So I just thought I'll mention it to you. And lastly, I would say that, in fact, in this book, he and another book which he wrote, So Good That They Cannot Ignore You, he speaks about an individual developing in oneself rare and valuable skills so that the individual becomes, can expect a rare and valuable job in the organization. That's how he puts it as. So I would only say that change is the end result of all true learning, it is said. So if you focus on the program, you should be, quote unquote, a changed individual in the sense of you are being more effective at work, more efficient at work, and more holistic in your approach when you tackle organizational challenges. So you would not only be a professionally competent person, but also a well-rounded professional. And, as Abraham Maslow once said, a famous American psychologist, what a man can be, he must be. In the sense that this program should help you to realize your true potential, so that you are able not only to look at, with hindsight, all your experience. This should help you to bridge that hindsight with the insights you gain in the program, so that you have a better foresight. Going forward, you can plan and implement or execute better in your organization. So let me say that I wish all of you a very engaging, enjoyable, enriching learning experience here, and experiential one, because all of you come with huge amount of experience. And may you all have a memorable, enjoyable, wonderful time here at this institute. And the last one is, because you are now part of our family, our larger family, I would say that may you preserve, protect, promote the prestige and popularity of this institute, because you have that extra responsibility of being our ambassadors from this moment. Thank you. Godspeed and God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the sharing your views. We will now have the address by the chief guest, Ms. Jyotika Patankar. She has sent us the recorded address because unfortunately due to a I think
Parliamentary. She has been summoned by Parliament. So
Parliament, she could not be here, but she has kindly shared her views. We will now be playing the recorded version.
Professor Chandrasekhar, Director, IIM Visakhapatnam, esteemed faculty, distinguished participants of this course. It is a great privilege to be able to be amongst you today virtually and to have the opportunity of speaking with you. I'm extremely grateful to IIM Visakhapatnam for extending this invitation to me, and I look forward to sharing some of my thoughts with you. I would like to focus what I say today on the theme of great expectations. With due respect to Charles Dickens, I think great expectations is a very telling phrase today in our lives and in the work that we do, in the society that we live in, and indeed in the times that we live in. Let me elaborate what I mean by this. All of you here have been working in the corporate sector, in public sector undertakings, and you have been necessarily interacting with government, with the community around you, with society at large in the course of your work. I represent government in its undiluted form. I represent the traditional government servant, and we are there to implement policy. Sometimes we presume to formulate policy, implement and execute policy, and ensure that programs which are designed for community welfare are actually delivered to the community in good form. Over the years, the concept of the traditional democratic welfare state has undergone a change, perhaps unwittingly so. The underlying principle of the democratic welfare state, as we grew up to understand it, was the greatest good of the greatest number. And when I joined government, I had tremendous faith in this maxim. Government was not there for profit. Government was there for community well-being, good governance, administration, inclusivity, reaching out to the marginalized, ensuring that every citizen was included in its welfare programs, in its rule of law. Over the years, with liberalization, the opening up of the economy, change in lifestyles, and indeed the overwhelming march of technology, we have witnessed a change in this conception of government. Today, one may safely say that what constitutes government as manifest in execution and program delivery is in fact an amalgam of traditional government machinery, ideas and representatives from the corporate sector doing their bit, non-government agencies who are engaged in implementation, maybe citizens forums who are also engaged in implementation of a kind, companies doing CSR, corporate social responsibility, discharging corporate social responsibility in some form or the other, and a host of organizations and individuals coming together to execute program delivery. I don't know if amalgam is the right word, because all these organizations do not always sit together harmoniously. And so the end result is not as happy for the ultimate consumer as it could be. So when we talk about people receiving programs intended for their benefit, whether they are for opportunities in skill training, whether they are for public distribution of food grains, whether it's public health, water, sanitation, whatever be it, we are not always sure that the quality of delivery is very sound, or indeed that it reaches every section of society and community as it is meant to reach. What is the way out of this kind of an impasse, and how do we, coming from different sectors of the economy, how do we work together to ensure seamless delivery of government's welfare schemes so that the quality of life of people improves? In turn, their expectations from life go up, demand is generated, demand for better, higher, more goods and services in the economy. The economy gets a fillip and business all around flourishes. And again, the overall expectation of life and its quality keeps growing, and there is a boom all around. To that end, let me also talk about a couple of examples. We have been witnessing the horrors that the collapse of the public health infrastructure inflicted on all of us during this COVID pandemic. You would agree that health is definitely in the government domain, especially in a country like ours, which is so riven with inequalities in distribution of income and opportunity and wealth. Public health needs to be in the government domain so that the poor, the marginalized have at least some modicum of access to good health. However, during the pandemic, what we saw was a collapse of the health infrastructure. Hospitals could not cope. There were shortages all around. There was no kind of managerial responsibility in evidence, and nobody seemed to be able to cope. This, however, is not something which was occasioned by the pandemic. Public health infrastructure in India has been in a veritable state of collapse since a long time now. It was only felt very acutely during the pandemic, and it was brought home to the white-collared middle class as well, because for very long, the white-collared middle class has been accustomed to taking for granted a suitable mix of public and private. Public health institutions might not be up to the mark, but you rely on them not to fleece you. You rely on them for good diagnosis, perhaps, good medical advice, and then for actual delivery of treatment and medicines, you can always avail of the private sector. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, this failed for various reasons. So everybody felt that there is nothing by way of public health infrastructure left in the country. Now, what should we be doing, both in the public sector, the private sector, and the government, and indeed the citizens as a whole, to set this right so that we do not face this kind of total breakdown in the future? This is one example where if different sectors come together and work and raise expectations of people, the expectations themselves will give rise to better quality. The second example that I will use is one which is known to my friends in the IIMs, because very recently the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship has engaged in a partnership with 9 IIMs in the country to implement the Mahatma Gandhi National Fellowship Program, in which we hope to augment the capacity of district administration to do skill planning by giving them a Mahatma Gandhi National Fellow who is in the process of undergoing blended learning from prestigious institutions like the IIMs, who would be able to give managerial expertise to the district skill committees which are to implement district skill planning, and would be able to enable the happening of dynamics within the district skill committee by bringing to bear a very high degree of management and technological expertise. Here also, like in the earlier example, what we are trying to do is to bring together government experience government understanding of what it takes to cater to the governance and administration of all kinds of persons in society in vast numbers with differing expectations and differing economic levels, and the actual working expertise of the corporate sector, the focus of the corporate sector, the efficiency of the corporate sector in delivering goals. Let me go back to the experience of the pandemic and relate it to what I'm saying about expectations. If you look at the health infrastructure in our country, you would know that doctors, especially in rural areas, are almost never to be found in their designated government dispensaries, healthcare centers, district hospitals. It is very difficult indeed to figure out why they are not motivated to discharge their duties as medical experts in their designated places of posting, but they are conspicuous more by their absence rather than by a marked discharging of their duties. We do not know what it is that would motivate them. All kinds of things have been tried, but somehow health schemes fail because doctors are simply not available. Now, we have to try and create an environment whereby the local community, the society, expects the doctors to deliver, expects the doctors to be there. And from the weight of these expectations, the doctors would be forced, would be compelled to remain in their places of work and actually to administer public health. We have all the systems in place. We have users committees, hospital users committees to ensure that doctors, hospitals, clinics, pharmacists created by the government deliver to people what they are supposed to deliver. But the problem is that of accountability. Neither citizens nor doctors feel themselves accountable. The citizens do not hold the doctors accountable. They do not do their duty in insisting on the doctors being present. There is no pressure on the doctors of any kind, and the doctors themselves seem to be less than motivated. There are, of course, other reasons. Rural hospitals particularly are poorly equipped, but then that is not really any excuse for not working, because I do not remember a time when we had doctors coming up in arms to the health secretary saying that we cannot work because we do not have the equipment. They're more likely to come saying that they'd rather be transferred from place A to place B. So we need to enforce expectations. We need to create expectations in the minds of people that they are entitled to good quality service and they should receive good quality service. And it is through these expectations that they must make sure that those expectations are fulfilled by those who are supposed to be catering to them. If this had happened, then you would have across the country hospitals and clinics and pharmacies run by the government in better working order. And so we would have been able to get a health infrastructure together, which would still have delivered to some extent and which would not have buckled under totally, even in such a pandemic. Unfortunately, things were not working. They were not in the best of health themselves. And so nothing could come about. And here is where I want to emphasize again that it is not only the government, it is also the private sector, the citizens at large, who need to ensure that they get the best out of what it is that government has promised to deliver and create the necessary environment. Now, government and society is supposed to be based on social contract. We have to ensure that the rule of law is adhered to, that opportunities are available in equal measure for all, and there is a legal system which safeguards the rights of every citizen. There is a rule of law which operates and therefore which encourages enterprises to take off, which ensures that there is an atmosphere and environment conducive to the operation of the market economy, the growth of investment, and people coming up with new ideas to provide goods and services, all of which are duly protected by a legal framework, which is not threatening or disruptive. Here also, it is important that society at large have expectations and they insist on those expectations being fulfilled. Now, what is it that the private sector, the corporate sector or public sector undertakings at large, which are distinct from government proper, what is it that they can do to ensure that we have this kind of a harmonious correlation between the working of government and all other players in the economy? We all talk about corporate social responsibility, but I feel that the capacity building of this behemoth of government organization is very necessary to usher in a new age when everybody becomes aware of their responsibilities and, as I said again, the oft repeated word, expectations. We need to go in for capacity building and retraining, reskilling of government employees and infrastructure in a very big way, so that whether it is the district administration engaged in various facets of development, or whether it is the government at the center or the state capital, they all understand the progress and the reality of today and are able to take in whatever it is that the non-government sector offers by way of enterprise, by way of opportunity, by way of market intervention. It is the government sector which, if it is properly trained and its capacity is properly augmented, it can make sure that laws are fully functional, operational, that the rule of law is prevalent, and there is an informed organization at government level which can enable citizens to know and understand their rights, realize their expectations, and which can link citizens with all those delivering services and goods in the private sector or the NGO sector. So government has to be an enabler, government has to build its capacity, and for this, the non-government sector has its work cut out, because it has to make sure that it instills expectations in people and enables government employees to refresh themselves and take meaningful part in the changing world and its circumstances. And finally, I would like to say that one way of doing this, because we have to search for new ways of doing things today, we cannot rely on the traditional systems of training government servants anymore and then waiting for them to do something. Maybe as part of corporate social responsibility, the private sector companies, the public sector enterprises could actually think of investing heavily in providing quality training, quality capacity building to government employees at their cost in their kind of environment, to enable them to join the dots and to understand much more about technological advance and how public and private can work fruitfully together. This would greatly refresh the view of government employees, much more receptive to new interventions and the activities of other enterprises in the field, which would make for better service delivery and better implemented programs. The Mahatma Gandhi National Fellowship is an attempt in that direction, and one would think that there is a lot of scope for this kind of capacity building. And tomorrow, if the private sector offers secondment to government employees or finds some way of creating a framework within which government employees can be suitably trained, then perhaps we can create an environment where service delivery greatly improves, and there is an entirely new role for public and private together. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best for your upcoming course, and we look forward working closely with the IIMs in the future also, because there is tremendous scope for collaboration of a kind and degree which we have not witnessed hitherto. Thank you very much.
Now we will have the announcement of the top performers of the 2019-21 batch, which is the term-wise candidates. So students ranked first on the basis of academic performance, the term grade point average, TGPA, in the respective sections at the end of terms 1 and 2 will be awarded a book grant of ₹6,000 and a certificate of merit. The student who has topped both term 1 and term 2 is Ms. Divya Kupili. So congrats, Divya. For term 3 as well as the director's merit list, we would be making the announcement once the term 3 results are fully declared. I'll request our director, Professor Chandrasekhar, to present the memento virtually to our chief guest.
Friends, as Vinay announced, Madam Jyotika ji couldn't join us because she had a kind of an urgent meeting in the parliament, so she had to go there. But she had promised to address the student cohort once again. And I'm sure it will be much more kind of, we do welcome that kind of offer from her, and we would invite her to address all of you for further value add. It was a brilliant speech by her. We have noted a few points, and maybe when you come into the classroom, we will circulate the highlights of what she said. And on behalf of all of us here, let me present this to her virtually. We will have it sent across to her office. This is a memento as a token of our respect and gratitude to her. And I would send it with a note of thanks from all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll request Professor Saroj Kumar Pani, the incoming DGPX chair, to offer the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Professor Vinay. Though it is called concluding remark, for 31 of our participants, the students, it is going to be a new beginning. So I welcome you all, and from today onwards, you are going to be in a most exciting journey of your life. I am sure from the address of our chief guest as well as our director, you would have probably concluded that what this journey is going to be. Before that, I thank you all of you to have chosen this particular career, chosen our institute, and dedicated yourself for another 2 years of study. So I am sure that to the dedication and also as well as the discipline and as well as the desire that you have, that will bear fruit in near future. My gratitude to Ms. Jyotika Patankar to have agreed to address our students as well as address our organization today. And as you have probably figured out, she has set the expectation very broadly. She has explained the workings of one of the most important stakeholders who is going to affect our life, that is the government. And most importantly, what she has told is about quality of life. And I am sure that we are thankful to her that our managers or our future managers are going to take this learning forward and rededicate themselves to improve not only their quality of life, but also the quality of life of the entire society. Then I am thankful to Professor Chandrasekhar, who explained the organizational context as well as the institutional context, and who have given a motivational address which explains what we expect from you and how you are going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. And then I am thankful to the admission team led by Professor Milan, who has gone through the entire process. And after a very painstaking process, they have given us 31 brilliant students whom we are going to be friends with for another 2 or 3 years. Next, I thank all my faculty colleagues without whom this program would not have been possible, and who are the most important persons in the entire organization who will ensure that this program runs smoothly, this program runs the way it will run, and the program runs in a manner which is befitting to the IIM standard. Afterwards, my gratitude to the PGPEX team led by Professor Vinay, and most importantly, the two of the persons that all of our students will be interacting in the next 2 years, Mr. Ramesh and Mr. Vishwanath. I thank both of them. And lastly, I thank the IT team and the entire administrative staff who have conducted this particular ceremony, as well as who will be conducting the online classes afterwards in a very, very efficient and effective manner. So thank you all and welcome to the program. And we will be seeing you in the next process, which is the orientation program.